Good morning. Welcome to the live stream of the interview conducted for our quarterly newsletter, the Billabong Bulletin. Today, we have had the golden chance of interviewing Ms. Piyuti Ghosh, the co-founder of Ananth Mandi and Life School. We are so glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Ghosh has pursued an MA in Education from Azim Premji University in Bengaluru in 2018. After that, she has launched two major initiatives. Ananth Mandi is a youth initiative that is aimed at promoting the culture of sustainability by building a community of eco-friendly people and eco-conscious people. This currently consists of two projects. One is an organic farmers and local artisans market that is put up at Gandhi Bhavan in Bhopal, and the second one is a community farming experiment in Nilband to develop organic vegetable garden. Before we begin today, I'd like to make a couple of introductions. We have with us today Ms. Noor Qureshi, who is the literary head, and two students of Organic Farming and Cooking Club, Hingurani and Pranav Prakash. Pranav will now brief us about the work that they do in the club.
In the Cooking and Farming Club, we learn how to farm for ourselves and also cook the food that we farmed while remaining environmentally friendly. I used to have a severe case of the Monday blues every week, but because slums on Mondays and Tuesdays, they've actually dissipated almost completely.
I think even Anand would want to share something about his experience working with this fantastic club that we have.
I've been only in this club for a year and my experience with it has been amazing. We had grown many vegetables such as tomatoes, parsley, spinach and many more. We also took workshops of the primary school. We made over 10,000 seed balls and we all planted them into a barren land.
Let's go. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Anand and Pranav. Without further ado, let us begin with the interview. I will be taking up the first question. How did learning from the Azim Premji University help you pin down the two major initiatives that you've taken up right now, which are Life School and Ananth Mandi?
So in Azim Premji University, I did MA in Education, and so this was more of a liberal arts course, and it was a very different kind of an experience for me. So the course majorly dealt with, we learned a lot about what education really means and how experience plays a very important role in education. Like how you all are doing in the organic club, right? You go on the farm, you do a lot of activities, and then you also correlate that with what you learn in the classrooms. So these kinds of learnings, helped me to come back to Bhopal and then think a little differently about how education is done for urban children. So that's how we started this initiative, Life School, which majorly deals with teaching children certain life skills through an experiential learning approach, out of classrooms, out of their homes, in outdoor learning spaces. So that is one. And apart from that, when I was in the university, I also did some courses around sustainability, some courses on Gandhian ideas of education and how to build a good society and all of that. So those were, I think, really inspiring for me, and I came across a lot of unique ideas that could be, implemented in city spaces as well. Otherwise, generally when we talk about sustainability, it's usually living a simple life, going towards more towards rural areas, connecting with the land. But what do we do in the cities, right? The city people also need to change their habits, change their choices. So apart from my course, I did another short-term course that my university offers after I graduated the next year, and that course is called Living Utopias, in which we study a lot of different alternatives that are going across the world, and alternatives against industrialism, so anti-industrial alternatives in the world. So that course also gave me a lot of insights on, okay, this can be done in the cities, this can be, so real working alternatives that were happening across the world. So that was another inspiring course that I did. And slowly, gradually, apart from the academic part, the people that I lived with, the professors who taught me, their lifestyles, their thinking, and the kind of lives that we also lived while we were in the university. We used to go to an organic farmer's market to buy all the supplies for our house and all of that. So the culture of my friends, of the people that I lived with, also helped me shape a lot of my ideas here. So.
Thank you for your response. It is very interesting to see how experiences help shape the initiatives we take up and the decisions we make. Thank you.
All right, so our next question is going to be asked by this gentleman sitting right next to me, Anand, and I will hand over the mic to him so that he can ask you the question he wants.
What was that one moment that inspired you to take this first step, and why did you decide to name Anand?
So great, this question coming from Anand actually is very, very beautiful. So I would not say one moment, but so me and one of my friends, Soumya, we started this initiative together. So one simple thing that we were looking for was to build a culture of sustainable lifestyle in the city, because we also wanted to, change our lifestyle towards being more sustainable, and we wanted more people to think alike and wanted to get connected to more like-minded people so that it helps us shape up our lifestyles as well. And we were also personally looking for alternatives. So when I came back to Bhopal, in Bangalore, as I said, that I used to get all the supplies from an organic farmer's market. When I came back to Bhopal, I wanted to continue that practice, and I was looking for an alternative, but there were not many. So we thought, why don't we start one? When this is a gap in the society, when we ourselves are feeling this gap, why don't we start one ourselves? Moreover, why did we start with food? Because ours is an organic farmers market, and it deals with food choices of consumers and also around organic farming. So why did we start with food? The reason was, one is that the struggle for food will always remain, no matter the other struggles might get solved and all, but food is so central to our lives that the struggle for that will remain forever. So one is that, and then the other part is, if you look at Indian societies, food is something that brings people together, right? It builds cultures. So to build up a community, our approach, we had thought that our approach would always be the community building approach. And food being so central to our lives, and something that becomes a part of celebrations, festivals, becomes a part of normal conversations. Why don't we start with that? So we thought this would be good to bring people together. And also in Bhopal, what we noticed was there were dialogues around sustainability, around environment conservation, but those always got limited to ki ped mat kaato, and do not use plastic and all of that. But if we look at sustainability, it is a lot more than that. So we thought, let's pick this up. Let's pick this food part up and start something like this. Why did we name it Anand? Because it was actually a very impromptu name. Okay, we had to organize our first farmers market within a week's time, and we had to come up with a name. So we had a list of names with us. This name Anand, as it means infinite. So this was the most non-restrictive kind of name for us. And we thought that this would bring in a lot of things under its umbrella. This was not focused on one particular theme, and as we say that this could have broadened our scope of exploration. So that way, this name Anand suited the most at that time, because we were also not very clear as to which direction we want to go, but we knew that we would explore a lot of things under this initiative, and that is how it has been happening in the past 2 years. So Anant means infinite, and a lot of things can come under it. A lot of people can add diverse aspects into it. So that's how.
Wonderfully explained. And I'm so happy. Anand is also sitting right next to me, so he must be feeling proud of his name. All right. Our next question for the day is supposed to be asked by Pranav, who's sitting right here. Over to you for the next question, Pranav.
Ms. Ghosh, why is it essential to build a community of eco-conscious people? And what are some of the challenges that you faced while educating them about community farming?
So why is it essential to build a community of eco-conscious people? So if I talk about this eco-conscious part, so why do people need to become more ecologically conscious? Because if you see that, there are a lot of different kind of crises that the world is facing today. Social crisis, economic crisis, a lot of things, a lot of issues, right? But I feel, and also what I've understood from different learnings that I've got from the university and other things, that ecological crisis lies at the center, right? If you play with nature, if you degrade the resources, you are not left with any, and in a state of deprivation of resources, social crisis will also emerge, economic crisis will also emerge, political crisis will also emerge. So ecological crisis lies at the center, right? So if you start focusing on this problem, a lot of other problems might get solved. So that's why eco-conscious community. And why a community? Because if you see how an ecosystem works, how a forest works, how a river works, how an ocean works, it's not, there is very less sense of individualism in an ecosystem. So there are small components in an ecosystem which support each other, and all those components are interdependent on each other, and that's how the entire ecosystem is functioning. So if you want to focus on ecological sustainability, the only way to go is the community building way, wherein people work in harmony with each other, with a sense of not exploiting each other, and being interdependent with each other. And that's what we have observed in our own initiative as well. So this is actually, the Organic Farmers Market is a community-run initiative. There are youngsters like us, there are these farmers who contribute, there are a lot of visitors who come there, hold different spaces in, they would say that, okay, the next Monday we would also do this, we would also like to cook in the next Monday, we would also like to put up a stall, we would like to hold an art space. So this is how, when you give the ownership to the community, different people add a lot of different components, and that is how an entire community works. That is how the entire community sustains, I would say. So yes, that is the community building approach for ecological consciousness in people. Challenges, I would say that the community farming part especially, it has been just a couple of months since we have started. So as of now, we are also exploring what kind of challenges we would face eventually. But I think it's because it's a voluntary thing, so there are people who are engaged on a regular basis. There are people who come and go. So it's slightly irregular in that sense. Also, farming part, I think a lot of people have still not realized why should they take that up, because we have still not realized the crisis that is looming and we are nearing to in the coming years. So a lot of people fail to recognize that crisis and adopt a practice like farming or consuming healthy ecological food. So that part of educating them, explaining them the science behind it in a simple language and explaining why is it important, that has been a bit of a challenge, but I think we are going to explore how to overcome that.
It's really a very interesting concept.
Thank you so much.
In fact, in case I would want to also share the fact that a lot of times people are actually looking forward to farming, but they're living in closed spaces, maybe flats. Gone are those good old days when we had vast expanse of lands and we could actually sow whatever we felt like sowing. I think this seems to be a great option for people who are actually looking forward to farming and they're living in closed spaces. I still know a lot of people who have their own little balcony and their own green patch created with little pots of organic greens and a little kitchen patch grown just in a few potted plants. And I think it seems to be a great option for people who don't basically own a land, but they can always look forward to such beautiful experiences.
Also, another challenge is, that people are not ready to invest a lot of time in gardening and farming, because
it is consuming.
Yeah, it
But
is
it is fruitful.
Yeah, the plant is like a baby. It requires your care, it requires your attention. So that is
Absolutely. Next question, if you can, of course, with your permission, proceed further, will be taken up by Hia. Over to you, Hia.
What, according to you, is the best part about watching Anant Mandi grow and flourish? And where do you see it 5 years from now?
So the best part of seeing Anant Mandi grow is definitely how different people have found an ownership in the initiative. As I said that a lot of people find their own spaces in the mandi. It's not like, if I talk about the farmers market, it's not like walking into a normal fair where you're just a visitor and you just hop around the stalls and go back. It's a lot more engaging than that. So that is, I think, a really happy part of seeing it grow like a community initiative and different people finding their own spaces in it. Apart from that, even in our team, the core team that is there, I have seen, people now talking about in our general conversations, a lot of discussions around food, sustainability, and all of that come up, and our own choices have changed a lot. So if I talk about people of our generation who likes to, hang out and go for parties and all of that, so we now spend our holidays, our breaks on a farm or camping in some forest and all of that, or working on our own farmland. So I have seen a lot of changes happen in us as well, and people from our team are also looking into taking this or taking sustainable options as professions as well. So there is one friend of ours who works with the Anant Mandi. He has started his own dairy. Wow. So they see cows and they deliver A2 milk and all of that. So this line of thinking has developed in us as well, and youth like us is also looking at this as something that they want to do in their lives ahead as well. So I think some of these things, and also where do I see it 5 years from now? I think I would look at this as that this would evolve as a lot more spaces being converted into community farming lands in the city, and a lot more people changing their food choices, not only by force but actually consciously and willingly. So yeah, maybe that.
Thank you for that response. It is certainly very interesting to see how the choices of people around us influence our own choices. And I'm sure if my group of friends decide that we'll take up a farm, we'll gladly jump on the opportunity. How well that would go, I'm not sure though.
Alright, so the next question would be asked by Anant. I'm handing over the mic to Anant now.
People are aware of the ill effects of climate change and environmental pollution. We often see them talking about sustainability, green initiatives, and responsible consumption around environmental days. What do you think we are missing out on where implementation is concerned?
So, see, on a personal front, as a consumer, in today's world, I have a lot of choices, right? On a click, I would get something delivered to my home, and also, like as I said, that we are actually spoiled for choices. We have a lot of convenient choices, I would say. Okay, so the way that markets have developed, it has made us more convenient, right? I would like to go and eat some kind of a fast food dish within like 5 minutes of preparation, and I would like walk away from there. So our lives have become a lot more faster, and as consumers, we have become a lot more convenient. Okay, so talking about a simple sustainable habit of segregating your waste, right? So it takes some effort to think which waste would go into which kind of a bin, right? But otherwise, we are a use and throw kind of a society now. We just use something and throw it away. We don't think about our waste, right? So leading a sustainable life requires a little amount of coming out of your convenience zone, your comfort zone, and consciously thinking about the things that we don't think about right now, right? So this is one. Coming out of convenience, coming out of comfort zone is one thing that we miss out on as like on a personal front. Then if I talk about how systemic change is required and how that is not happening right now. So what happens when you make a system sustainable, right? Self-sustainable, as in it is ongoing. You do not have to put a lot of resources into it after a certain point of time to make it sustain, right? Now, I would take an example of what would happen if people start eating good food, right? They would not fall ill, there would be lesser diseases. What would the hospitals do then? Okay, what would the pharmaceutical industry do then? So industries might shut down, right? If a lot of these market forces might go down. A lot of industries might shut down if you make the entire system sustainable. Basically, by making systems sustainable, you make it less dependent on the people who have power, right? Pharmacy industries would shut down, and then what would happen if farmers start doing organic farming? They wouldn't need more fertilizers, they wouldn't need hybrid seeds, so that entire industry would shut down. Okay, so and farmers would get power in their own hands. They would be able to sustain their own farms themselves. So basically, the people in power, they don't want to lose control on other people, right? They don't want to lose that power. By making systems sustainable, they would lose it, and the system would not be dependent on them. So I think that is one underlying thought that is there, and which is why the government is also not pushing sustainable alternatives in their policies and all of that. So according to my analysis, my understanding, I think.
In fact, you know what? That reminds me of 2-3 brands: Zomato, Swiggy. Also reminds me of some gyms that have started popping up these days. I don't know what will happen in case the entire nation goes sustainable. All right. You have something to say?
Yes, when you were talking about how industries will start shutting down, and when those industries start shutting down, pollution will also decrease, and it will just like start a chain of positive outcomes. That is certainly such an interesting prospect. Okay.
Thank you for your response. And I do have another question. What are the benefits of biodiverse organic farming to both the farmers and the consumers? Please suggest a few alternatives that everyone should seriously consider.
So, organic farming, biodiverse organic farming, if you look at that, it has to do a lot about how you work with the soil in which you are farming. So, definitely, biodiverse organic farming enriches the soil, makes it more sustainable for a long-term farming. So, if you look at how green revolution started, and then farmers all across the country started using fertilizers, they started using hybrid seeds and all of that, and they were given all of those things with the promise that that this would increase yield, and you will be able to have better production and all of that. But then after many decades, they realized that their soil, the nature of the soil has changed, and they are not able to get enough produce from that anymore, or the problem of pests have increased, and the soil needs much more water, much better irrigation facilities to bring a better yield and all of that. So in the longer run, all of those extra chemicals that you added in the soil destroyed it, and this is not a sustainable practice, right? You just do something for a short time frame to get better results for a short time frame, but you destroy the entire ecosystem, and it doesn't last longer. So of course, organic farming in the initial period would give you lesser yield, but it would actually retain the properties of the soil. So it is definitely better for farmers in the longer run, but for that we need to wait. We need to change this habit of quick results, and have the patience. So for farmers, definitely it is possible. Also, like these hybrid seeds, these fertilizers, they cost a lot. I mean, farmers, half of their, why do they go into debts? Why do they go into all of this? Because they have to invest a lot while farming. Buying seeds, buying fertilizers is very costly. But in biodiverse organic farming, your own farm waste is becoming an input for your farm. Then you are saving seeds, so you do not need seeds for the next cycle. So a lot of such kind of benefits definitely for the farmers, and for the consumers, of course, you are eating something that is far more healthy than what you are eating right now. So yes, and overall, if you look at the environment point of view, it is conserving a lot of biodiversity and environmentally less pollution and all of that. Suggesting a few alternatives that everyone should consider. So if I don't go into specifics, I would just say one thing about what would be a good way to look at an alternative. Even for farmers and for consumers, for everybody, I feel that everybody should focus a little more on the waste that they are generating, because any product, the food that you are eating, you just cook it, eat it, and whatever is the waste, you just throw it away. But this life cycle of that particular thing doesn't end there. It's a complete cycle. The waste has to go somewhere, okay? And the waste is actually it's a treasure. So once you start looking at the waste as a treasure, I think a lot of alternatives would emerge. And also the waste that does not turn out to be a treasure, you would stop generating that waste. Like plastic, for example, does not degrade, does not go back into the soil, it does not complete the cycle. It stops at the plastic level. So then we start shifting into a lesser, plastic consumption lifestyle, which would definitely require a little moving out of your comfort zone, convenience zone. So yeah, that is, I think, one way of looking at it.
Thank you so much for that response. We have here asking you the next question for the interview.
Thank you. What, according to you, is the best way to convince the youth or appeal to them in a way that they choose to switch to organic and sustainable farming rather than, as you previously said, the highly processed and unhealthy food that they consume right now?
Right. So, farming is actually the second step, right? First, you need to become a responsible consumer. Yeah, you need to get your food from the right sources, get your food from sources where it is grown organically and all of that. So I would answer this question with an example. So there's this one woman who comes to our Anant Mandi. She puts up a food stall, and this one day she had brought muffins which had flax seeds in it, and also it was made of I think ragi or whole wheat, something. I think it was ragi. Ragi is a millet. So she said, I said, how did you come up with this recipe? I have never had flax seeds muffin. So she said that, my son, he doesn't eat flax seeds when I give it to him just like that, or, with milk, or something like that. So I thought, why don't I innovate with a cake recipe, a muffin recipe, and add flax seeds in it? And my son has started liking it now. So these are simple innovations that we can do, right? We know what our choices are. We know that we like eating cakes. We know that we like eating pasta, pizza, and all of that. But within these choices, how do we make it more ecological? So you just change this is an example, you just change the ingredients, you make it slightly differently. You do not have to, I'm not asking anybody to, just eat like boiled vegetables or all of these things. But we can actually bring in innovation that suits our choices but is also ecologically sustainable. So I think, and also make it more trendy and vibrant for us. So that is what we are trying to do through Anant Mandi. If you come to Anant Mandi sometime, you will find it as a very vibrant and happening kind of a place where youth also likes to be in. But it is also promoting something which is a good practice, which is a good habit, right? It is also changing the choices. So basically, we are trying to make healthier choices look more happening and more vibrant for youth like us, so that we choose to practice. And it shouldn't look hard on us, right? As in, it shouldn't look like a very hard choice to take. It should look like a choice that we are all willing to take, and it is something that so that's what happens, when we promote it, when we talk about it. Our own friends, they get influenced a lot. So one is definitely we need more youngsters to start thinking about it and start working on these lines, so that a lot of our own friends get influenced, and they would say, "Acha, ye bhi kar raha hai, so let's try it," right? So, and also do small innovations in this practice to fulfill our own choices, but also in an ecologically sustainable manner. So little innovations would work.
Thank you so much for that response. I feel like we're a generation who's, if not working as much towards climate change, at least we're more aware of it. So, as you said, making it trendy and making it stuff, I'm really hopeful that, all of us are more involved in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Piyuli, I feel tempted to ask you one thing. In a country like India, where so many people go to bed hungry and absolutely not even a single square meal for them to suffice their hunger, how do you think and why do you think organic foods are associated only with the top class? Like in terms of, it has become more like a fad, I would say, but it is also to do with some sort of status consciousness. A lot of people are just doing it because they think that they want to be, shown in a specific strata of the society, to be talked about, and it has kind of become a statement for them to be switching to organic products. And how do we actually break that thought? Because we want each and everyone in the chain to implement in order to create that kind of impact that we're talking about, right?
So one thing is, there is definitely a problem of supply, right? We need more organic farmers to meet the demand of organic food if it has to suffice the entire population or all of that. But so that viability of the organic farming practice is still being experimented, okay? But one thing that people know is that chemical farming wouldn't solve the problem. Okay? But how far organic farming would be able to solve the problem, that is still being experimented. And this thing that you talked about, that it has just remained as a choice for the elite, and so a lot of market forces are actually banking on this. The cost of organic products.
That reminds me, I have a few people in my circle who actually want to switch to organic farming, but then because they belong to a middle segment in terms of their earnings, they don't have choice. They don't have much choice because they have a limited budget, and they have to run the house with 2 kids or 3 kids and their education and whatnot. And ultimately, they fall back upon the cheaper product on the shelf. So,
So we also need to see. If we actually talk about the cost of organic products and the regular products that we get, there's not much difference. Okay, but as I said that this fact that it is for the elite, a lot of people have banned on this and have increased the cost of their products. So they are looking at this as a commercial aspect. But otherwise, if you see, the cost is not much. And what I would suggest, but definitely I'm not saying that we do not need to work on the affordability aspect of it. It definitely has to become more affordable, and that is something for us to work with the farmers, right? That's a question that we need to explore with them. But what we suggest, or we generally tell to the people who come here and who say that this is higher cost and all of that. So that minimum cost difference which is there, you will anyways end up spending it in hospitals or in buying medicines when you get sick, right? So मतलब एक तो आप बीमार भी पड़ रहे हो and then you are spending more as well. So why not just start accommodating your budget and work on your food choices. But that being said, we also need to work on the affordability aspect of organic foods.
Quite a balanced response, and you absolutely brought a new thing to perspective, like the hospitalization bills. Nobody thinks about that. Over to Pranav. He's been quite excited to ask the next question.
Ms. Ghosh, why is it important for farmers and buyers to interact?
So, if you see food as a thing, it is. So you are eating 3 times a day, 4 times a day, and you do not even know where is the food coming from, right? It is brought so easily to your plate, and you just eat it and finish it, but you do not get to know how is it grown, where is it grown, who is growing it, and what does it take to grow your food and bring it to your plate, right? So this interaction between farmers and buyers is important, so that you get closer to knowing the source of your food, and also so that you start valuing it more, right? So when I start growing any vegetable, I would know what it takes to, how much time does it take, how much resources does it take, how much energy does it take to make that little plant grow, right? And then as a child or as a youth, I will start thinking about, okay, I don't have to waste it, because it takes a lot of hard work to grow this, right? So this is how I think this is one important aspect, that you start putting more value to something as simple as food, but so fundamental, right? That's why this interaction is important. So.
Thank you. Next question again is from Pranav.
Yes, ma'am. So I actually have another question for you. Ms. Ghosh, what's your take on the new bills that have been introduced for farmers, and what impact do you think it will have on farming in the long run?
So, if you look at the recent bills, it's basically privatizing the entire agriculture sector, right? And this kind of privatization has always increased more competition among people, more competition in the market, which has led to a lot of violence, people being insecure and fighting against each other. And moreover, the recent bills will actually affect the small farmers a lot, farmers who are farming on lands which are less than 2 acres or so. So this would affect the small farmers a lot, and definitely increase more competition in the market, which is not a sustainable way of developing a society. So privatization in that sense is definitely wrong, and I also do not support the recent bills that have been introduced. But also there's another thing of, if you see what kind of farmers would this have an impact on, these are all farmers who are doing chemical farming, who need to earn a certain amount of money, which we call, they need to get their MSP, and they need to invest in the next cycle. So they need to earn certain amount of money to buy seeds, to buy fertilizers, to work on their land. Correct. So you are anyway dependent on a certain market to run your own farm, and now that market has become more competitive, so you are not sure of getting that amount of money as well. But you also need to invest on seeds, on fertilizers and all of that. So these are all the farmers who are doing chemical farming. But if there is a little bit of transition towards organic farming, they would not have to depend on the system actually. So this is also an alternative, to think about a different perspective to think about the farm bills to actually understand who are these kind of farmers. Definitely, the bills are not pro-farmer bills, right? They will have an impact on them. But the farmers can also begin to change their practices of farming to not depend on the system at all, right? And the government needs to bring in certain other reforms. They need to subsidize organic fertilizers. They need to subsidize the cow dung manure availability and all of that. So I think these are my two points on this. One is that privatization is definitely wrong, but also changing ways of farming might solve farmers' problems here. So
I appreciate your response, ma'am. It was quite enlightening.
thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our interview for today. We're so honored to have you with us, and we're so deeply grateful to you for answering all of our questions. I'm sure that your words will stay with everyone who has been watching here today, and everyone who will be reading this interview in the next edition of our Billabong Bulletin.
Thank you so much. And beautiful questions. I think it really made me think about reflect on my own initiative and what is the kind of impact that it is making. So I really liked it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Piyuli, for joining us. And thanks for watching. Have a great day ahead.